All right, so welcome into the live stream today. We're going to look at a couple of stable coins. You guys, of course, know them all, and take a little bit of a deeper dive in what market corrections could still be at play as we start to kind of play out the back half of what this situation could be within a bear market. And we'll dive into all that. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. As you guys have been seeing, we're dropping a couple of live streams. Yesterday we only got one out, but today we're going to try, we will have two live streams out for you. We're going to do this one. We've got another one coming up here at 3 o'clock that's going to be dropping in the latest crypto power index numbers on Bitcoin and Ethereum, both of which gives us a little bit of a direction on how the market is going to trend over through the weekend. So make sure and check that one out, of course. Let's jump to it. Let's get into the Yahoo Finance news right here. Tether sees a new wave of redemptions as fear of market contagion starts to spread. And if you've been watching the Tether chart for any time, you probably have been seeing this. We kind of have alluded to that in the last few shows, is just showing USDC and Tether's position. There is and does seem to be a crossover that is occurring. And this will be interesting to kind of watch out for as it starts to roll out. But here's the numbers right here. Investors pulled out at 1.6 billion in 48 hours from Tether's dollar-pegged USDT, reducing its circulating supply down to 70 billion. So we're fixing. That's the Texan coming out at me, guys. We're starting to see an under $70 billion circulating supply. So this would be the lowest since October 2021. And remember, October 2021, we had a lot of projects deployed. October was prepping for the bull run. Really, it was kind of the metaverse jump. Then we saw November hit, and then wham, you had an all-time high there. So quite a bit different. Tether's USDT has a different financial structure from the Terra blockchain, obviously an algorithmic versus something that is backed by assets. Now the question has always been is to what level is Tether's assets in control, and we'll kind of flow through a lot of that today. But fear dominates in the crypto markets as the price of cryptocurrencies crash and several big industry players face financial difficulties. Obviously, we've seen this from Celsius, a crypto lender that once held over 10 billion in client assets, suspended withdrawals. Obviously, we know all about that. Don't get me into Celsius AMA today, guys. I'm not going there. And then, of course, Three Arrows Capital, also one of the largest crypto hedge funds, is also under scrutiny. So we've been reporting on this all week, and it is the concern in the marketplace right now. It is the concern in the sense of how will this affect the primary assets, some of the really good projects that are out there. And this is something we've been staying for quite some time, is that the likelihood is that we are going to see more pain. The macro events that continue to push the market are just really undeniable. There's no way around it. We're going to have to work through those things. And the key here is that we don't get these black swan events happening during this process in which the market has its vulnerabilities. That's the more and probably the biggest concern I have, from a market standpoint. But, like a phoenix, sometimes you do get a burn it down type scenario. We've had it once before, and that was in the dot bomb era. That was a burn it down period. And I'll show you some stuff on that. One thing, this was a report that was put out on USDC, and it basically was the myths of, stablecoins. And this one is, unregulated form of internet money, reminiscent of the Wild West of wildcat banking. This has been dispelled. USDC really kind of has done a huge push into the fact that they are trying to, one, go to a dollar for dollar currency backing. So that obviously in itself is it's the example of what a stable coin should be. If you want to check out this, we'll leave a link. I'll leave a link or I'll tweet it out. This is a good report, and it's got a lot of very interesting things. Unreserved liquid and lack of transparency, not the case with USDC. And to a certain extent, not the case with Tether all the way. There is a lot of commercial paper that backs Tether. But at the same time, there's also a lot of treasuries and a lot of dollars that also back Tether. So the key there will be as this starts to flow out. But the point is that these stable coins have really come a long way. They've really got into a position now where they are in, I think, a much better position to act for global currency in the essence of being able to move dollars around. And if you think of the scenario with dollars, that's a big problem, at least for businesses and big organizations. And that's the other, kind of the other issue that you have to address is where are the big businesses securing, their digital assets, and their digital assets being something like a USDC, a stablecoin. And I'll get into that because there's some very key tracks that you can follow here to see how this rolls out. If you look at current Google trends, we're not the only one that's worried about this. This is something that's been brewing for quite some time. This, of course, tethers have been spiking. This happened obviously back here in May. We know what happened then with Luna, but it continues to outperform in terms of overall search term Tether in comparison to USDC, but it is really interesting here, I think, as to whether or not that is a concern or if it is a plus. Typically, when you have search trends, it's a plus or it's a super negative, depending on how you look at, the current situation. This was a tweet by Becker, Alex Becker. You guys probably know we follow Alex, and he's got a statement here. The ugly truth. Sure, Luna, Celsius, they're just some of the weaker dominoes, but the big one, of course, is Tether. When the market pushes Tether too hard, that could be a massive event. And this is something that has been talked about for quite some time. If you look at what this guy's talking about, this was the Tether market cap falls, margin calls are starting to fall down. And it kind of gets into the overall, as you can kind of see this death spiral kind of moving in. And we've talked about this before. We just showed a couple of charts on USDC and on Tether yesterday. They really kind of pointed this whole point is that the market cap is sliding. There is some troubles there. And the question is whether or not the market can adjust and or stabilize. That's the other question for where we're watching is stabilization. And I just don't necessarily see this happening because of the fact that we continue to see these macro indicators that are pushing the market. And then we don't see sentiment. Sometimes macro indicators push the market and sentiment does not follow. We've seen this many times. But right now, sentiment is following these macro indicators. And I think it's just because there's so much fear right now in the industry and in all markets. We're not just talking about crypto. We're talking about traditional stocks. We're talking about real estate. It's getting deep out there for sure. I want to jump to a video real quick here with Kevin O'Leary, and he was on CoinDesk TV, and he really kind of dials into this quite well. But let's play this clip.
Which is kind of like for crypto, that's institutional trading, right? They're having issues as well. Are we there yet?
No, we're not. There's lots of precedents for this in history. To get a bottoming in an asset class, you need a major player to basically be offside. In the case of Celsius, it is going to go to zero. It's over levered. It's gated now. And the trouble with gating, a good example would be a hedge fund. Every single customer wants to be liquid the minute you open the gate. And so it's a self-realizing outcome. It will go to zero. It'll have no asset.
All right, so what he's talking about there is that he's expecting another major event to occur. He's talking about Celsius there. He thinks they're going to go to zero. And when they asked him really about what else could hit, this is kind of what he says right here. Let me kind of pull it up right here, and we'll play this clip.
I'm just waiting for that. But nonetheless, when it comes to this big event, and it sounds like you're sort of dancing around it. Do you think that this event may involve one of the major stable coins? In other words, like, should they get this? Yeah, should it get regulated and the like? That there could be that supernova. Is that kind of what you're getting at here?
I am getting at that, but what will trigger the supernova is leverage. It always is leverage. Every time there is a washout, it's leverage. And I don't know, and more, it's very opaque right now in some of these situations in these projects, how much leverage is involved. We know now that algorithmic stablecoins will fall out of favor. When you take Luna to basically a zero, people lose a lot of money, and they don't want to do that again. And that's a good thing. That it's an education.
All right, so what O'Leary's really kind of talking about here is that we are going, that really Celsius and Luna were insignificant. They are significant events, thank you, kind of scenario is what he talked about there, is he thinks Celsius will go to zero. That's a problem, I think, for anybody that's been on Celsius. So there still may be hope there. We just don't know. But the point he's talking about is that he believes that we are going to see an extinction style event. When I say extinction, just something that is really kind of hits the reset button. And that could be a major stablecoin. We all know what that might look like overall. So, as we look more and more into this, and he talks about this further into the interview with CoinDesk, is that there are and is a potential here for, especially for USDC, to be kind of the savior of this. And there's a couple of factors in that he's talking about from business entities that are trying, and this gets back to my point, is that when you get major business entities and large investors starting to put dollars into a particular asset like a stablecoin, it starts to create that safety layer that becomes very safe for retail and the rest of the industries. And this is just a quick video. And by the way, Circle doesn't sponsor this, USDC, nothing. What we're trying to do is analyze the market and make sure, why are these kinds of scenarios happening? What Circle has done, and remember, Circle is in the throes of trying to get to an IPO for a publicly traded company. But if you look at this video, they talk a little bit about their business product.
Introducing the Circle account, your home for business growth. It's a one-stop shop digital currency platform designed for businesses to get started transacting with USDC, sending, storing, and investing your balance into the crypto ecosystem. See how you can use the Circle account to accelerate your global growth. Let's get started. You can use your Circle account to mint USDC directly with Circle, the sole issuer of USDC. Deposit and withdraw funds via your bank account or the blockchain wallet of your choice. Settle USDC from your bank account near instantly via integrations with Signet, a real-time payments network offered by Signature Bank, and the Silvergate Exchange Network, or SEN. Send USDC on-chain with access to multiple leading blockchains. Easily separate your USDC balances into multiple wallets for different use cases. When you're ready to grow your balance, accredited investors can allocate into Circle Yield, an over-collateralized, fully secured crypto investment designed to help you earn crypto returns without the complexity. Circle Yield users see your monthly...
All right, so what I'm showing there is the fact that there are big players at bay here, and these big players are looking for a place to land these assets. These assets, remember, there's a ton of money that's sitting on the sidelines waiting for the right situation, whether it's a security side in the stock market, whether it's real estate, or whether it's crypto. There's big money out there. I mean, the example on that video alone, the account had 48 million in it. So these are business entities that are looking to essentially lock in. And this is what O'Leary was talking about, is he's using this very product to park all of his US dollars, gain those yields as an accredited investor, and be able to move these massive numbers. Now, these massive numbers being moved around does one thing, and that is it stabilizes that product, in this particular case, that stablecoin. So that is a big factor that really kind of flies in the face of where Tether is going, because Tether has a completely different angle. As you saw, this is a very slick model. It's, and when I show you some of the breakdowns into the percentages, et cetera, you'll start to see where the big money is flowing. And as you can see right here, market cap dips below the 70 billion for an 8-month low. This is something that, again, is not indicative of something that's doing and holding a position right now. The question is, and I'm always worried about, is if we get to a scenario where it depegs. If it depegs, this is the black swan event that O'Leary is mentioning. And that would be one of the things that really starts to play into this. Now, Tether is saying, issuer says rumors about its reserves composition are completely false. And a lot of people are looking at this. But the key here is, they're claiming right here, statement denies that 85% of its commercial paper holdings are backed by Chinese or Asian commercial papers and being traded off at 30% off, meaning that value is being diluted for commercial paper based on this position. Now, we don't know that for sure because nothing has been presented from Tether just yet, other than statements. So I think that is going to be the area as we get into this. Tether's statement comes after the head office of Controller of Currency, Michael Su, warned about the risk of stablecoins as Terra, et cetera, also lost its peg during the Terra Luna meltdown. So that's the concern right now, is that there could be a contagion effect brewing, and we just need to be very cognizant of those particular issues and how that might play out. Now, the fact that they are trying to do this is important. Tether aims to decrease its commercial paper backing of USDT to zero. If this occurs, Tether's really in a good position at that point, but they've got work to do to really get to this level. The angle, and you look at their breakdown right here, and we've showed this before. This was in May. Tether reported commercial paper makes up less than 25% of USDT's backing, amounting to 21 billion. Remember, 21 billion versus a total of a little less than 70 billion in market cap. So it's still a large percentage, but commercial paper and certificates of deposit, 20 billion. Cash holding it, and bank deposits holding it at 4 billion. And then you've got reserve, repurchase, et cetera. And then also U.S. Treasury bills at 40 billion. So U.S. Treasury bills, very solid. Non-U.S. Treasury, not so much. But if you think about U.S. Treasury and cash, you're sitting at 44, 45 billion. So if they can correct this and get the commercial paper off the sheet and start to see that, but I don't know necessarily how that economically is possible with the reduction we're seeing in the overall liquidity of it. So this will be very interesting to see this take its way out for sure. So a big one that we need to be watching very closely. I wanted to show you the overall market cap and dominance here. This, of course, is Bitcoin, ETH, USDT at 7.6%, which I thought was still pretty significant when you think about Tether versus the titans of crypto in Ethereum and in Bitcoin, for sure. So I think that is another factor that kind of plays into this, in the sense that it is such a vital part of the ecosystem and how this all comes together for really kind of the growth of where crypto is going to be. But to O'Leary's point is that, and you know, he's mentioned this before, listen, if it was 2008, it was Lehman Brothers, it was countrywide, those were the extinction events that occurred that caused the market to get a full reset, pull us basically further into a recession, and then boom, we saw a light at the end of the tunnel, and the market started seeing great gains, lots of good things. And that's what he kind of references, is that these kinds of things are good for markets. Now, good for markets meaning, you know, these events occur every once in a while, and you see these kinds of growth opportunities that end up really kind of repositioning the entire market as a whole. Here's another good example right here of holders, and this is where it kind of breaks down. Top 100 holders of USDT, ERC20 versus USDC. And you can kind of look at this. You know, your top 100 holders at 42% right there on USDT, top 100 at 77% on USDC. And that gets back to my point. Big money is why USDC and is being looked at, especially when you look at the regulatory sidelines and how all of these kind of things play into this, whether you look at Toomey's bill, and what O'Leary was talking about is that he's behind it. Now, he's spending a lot of time. Kevin O'Leary spent a lot of time. All of a sudden, he has become this poster child for stablecoins. He spent a lot of time in DC helping construct and push to get this regulated. Once it's regulated, that'll be a big issue for crypto in general. It will become a scenario, I think, that will be, one, give faith to the markets and start to get in institutional and large investment classes into these areas. Mainly because of the FDIC layer that they're trying to implement within that bill, which would really kind of create and structure these stablecoins in a very unique and different way. And as many of you guys know, if you're in many exchanges, in some of these exchanges do offer FDIC insurance, but it's the US dollar that you get the insurance on, not your stablecoin. So stablecoins are still exposed there. Markets like this, everybody's concerned about that. So that is something that O'Leary is kind of pushing to that point. And again, here's just kind of the stablecoin supply overall. You can see the two big players right here, Tether and of course USDC, definitely playing into that. Make sure and hit like on the video, because we love to get your feedback on how you guys like the styles of videos that we're doing, the research dives that we're doing, and then also if you like further, down the rabbit hole in terms of some of our own data from our power index, some of the things that you guys like to see. I'd love to see that. Just hit like on the video. Kind of helps us understand where you like these things to get rolling. Also, don't forget, let's get some questions in over on the side. We'll try to get to those here shortly. A couple more tweets here, and then a couple items I want to kind of flow out on. There's also an outright struggle right now in the market. This is a little bit more of a theory of where this might go. And this one's very interesting. FTX official, SBF, Alameda Research, CirclePay versus Celsius and Tether. And if you look at this statement right here, cryptocurrency Circle raised another $440 million in new funding. This, of course, was several weeks ago. Company said Friday, according to the list of crypto-focused businesses, everybody's kind of benefiting. But look at the participants here, and that is interesting. Fidelity, cryptocurrency exchange FTX, Digital Currency Group. If you don't know that company, you probably should go check out DCG, because you'll find out quickly that they're involved in a large percentage of the industry overall, which they also own Grayscale, and then, of course, maintaining the popular Bitcoin investment trust. And then also they own CoinDesk, which is all part of this component that kind of flew into this. So when you look at that, it does look to see that there are struggles within the market. But this is common everyday whale moves. It's a common thing that you see in distressed markets where positioning becomes everything into where and how these markets start to flow out. 300 million, this of course is USDD, 300 million USDC and more on Tron, the Dow Reserve. This is going to be a big deal. Now the collateral rate of USDD is over 324%. This gets to be a trouble for Tron and what that algorithmic will look like. So I think this is going to be another one. So, that I'm concerned about right now. And then USDC Operator Circle introduces a new Eurocoin. This is another reason that I think USDC continues to push for a global style of how this, this infrastructure is going to be built around stablecoins connected to primary currencies, whether it's the US dollar, the euro, etc. But they are introducing a USDC basically for the purpose and use as a euro exchange. So again, this gets into the major currencies around the world, and this is only going to, I think, continue to grow. So good news, bad news is that, we have to be on the watch for scenarios like what we are talking about here. Just as a little bit of a history channel, I'll show you a clip just of what I was talking about this time last year. Essentially, platforms that are essentially preferencing USDC over all other stablecoins. I think this really starts to point in one direction, and that is that we will see a transition of the guard, maybe not this year, possibly though in 2022, where USDC could take over as the #1 stablecoin out there. It'd be interesting to see also if and when we see the digital dollar come out from the US government, how it relates out or potentially maybe even plugs in to USDC. So that is something I talked about last year, is that there are a lot of powers at play here. And this is getting very serious because of the fact of the market being distressed in such a situation right now. These are the kind of times that even O'Leary was talking about, is that these are the times in which these events occur. And this also is the time in which some of these markets take additional correction. We'll talk about Bitcoin on the next video, because we'll get into a dive on really deep on where Bitcoin is still going and whether or not it's cracked the 20K, which we still believe it's going to. We'll give you guys some market sentiment on that. Before we get into questions, make sure and hit the like button. Also, don't forget, we will be going live on that video here shortly at 3 o'clock Eastern, so we will definitely stick around for that one. You're gonna love it. It's gonna be a good one. Let's go to our questions. Okay, are you still friends with Alex Mashinsky? So I don't necessarily call Alex a friend. I've interviewed him several times, but we have reached out to them to try to get them to come on the show in the essence of getting out of their PR blackout that essentially is in place. I just don't know. Yeah, I just don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. Nice one, Jason. I pushed my glasses black. By the way, you guys like the new specs? These are new. Let's go into Chris. What do you think about when you think about U.S. Treasury will partner with one of these stablecoins? That's my point, is that if we get regulation, that if Toomey's bill gets its way through Congress, and if O'Leary and others that are starting to kind of petition for that, it wouldn't necessarily be that it would attach, but it would, in essence, give the ability to be backed. And that, at the end of the day, I think is the short track to an essence of a digital dollar, not a true digital dollar, meaning if they go print, it doesn't raise the cap of Circle or for USDC. But I think the fact that it is backed by it is a big deal, especially if it's regulated. So it's going to be interesting to see that. If it ain't regulated, it's counterfeit. That's, be sovereign. Yeah, that's still questionable, I would say. Civigenic, empty my USDT for USDC, not wanting to be the last man out. Well, there's $70 billion in there, so I don't think you have to worry about the last man out. Brad, I'm looking forward to the Tether. I hope not, because I know that is going to create some very interesting stuff, but nobody hopes for those kind of things. But market hits. Listen, the market is going to do what it's going to do with or without us. It just reacts. It's like a living, breathing element, and it definitely goes into that. Let's jump over to a poll real quick because I wanted to see what you guys had to say on this one. All right, will USDC flip in the market cap in the next 30? Wow, everybody's kind of pointing at it as well, 70%. It's very close right now anyway. The likelihood is it overtakes. I think once that does occur, there's going to be some mental gymnastics that occur with a lot of investors of trying to figure out how do we reposition some of our scenarios. You're also going to look at some exchanges that start to really get affected. So you've got to be careful as to how those exchanges play into this. Listen, this is a very smart game right now. The question and the scenarios that you have to face is that there's so many different factors out there, so many different exchanges, so many of them that are tied to various types of key digital assets. So you have to kind of spread this stuff around. We just did a video on this yesterday, talking about diversifying your assets, getting into cold wallets, getting into hardware wallets, also diversifying within multi-exchanges, a lot of those kind of things that you should be doing just on an everyday basis anyway. Ledger or Trezor? I have both, so I don't, I will tell you this, that Ledger is a little bit clunky in the sense that you got to be somewhat techie. Because I did a test with someone that, that is very close to me, and they were trying to use a Ledger, and it was a little difficult for them to really understand it. I mean, it is a little bit unusual because of the way that you're popping in your passcode, which is, then you launch the app. The app, of course, is connected to Ledger Live. That's an app on your system. You're going to make sure you're plugged into not a dongle, but a USB device that's directly in. You get the picture quickly. Trezor, a little bit easier actually, but again, just a different company. It's a good device. I have two. Will Celsius make it? My thoughts. I'm still very hopeful that something comes out of this in a good way. If the markets were not in the position that they're in, I would have more hope that they could. The problem is, and I know they keep moving their liquidation number down, but it could be safe to a certain extent. But even then, a restructuring, getting money back is still going to be a question, I think, that we'll have to deal with. Kyle Wilson, good to see you, man. Does a Fed coin, why do a Fed coin when you can just regulate USDC? Yeah, I would say, back to your point, and we've talked about this before, regulating USDC, sure, but you can't print it. In essence, you can print more, and the value of USDC is a one-to-one peg on it, but the reality is that the central banks aren't involved, and that's the bigger factor when you don't have a Fed coin involved. Central banks not involved. Gas fees. Accredited investors, yeah, code word for bailing out the rich. I don't know, bail them out. I think accredited investors, and I think this is a problem. We've seen this with accredited investor backlash, really within the industry, even since Celsius did their little rug pull on, the yields that were being paid to U.S. residents went to accredited investors only. Now with Circle is the same kind of scenario. They're going after the businesses. They're going after that core baseline to shore up what USDC has in terms of overall. Brett, Bitcoin will go under 20K over the weekend. Crypto bank run will margin call everyone. Could be financing getting expensive while prices are diving. Very true. That is a true one. And that is, Brett, that is an example of the perfect storm that creates these market conditions like we saw in 2008. This is exactly what we're talking about. And this is something that we've talked about earlier when we did the Fed overview this week on Wednesday. Go back and look at that video because I broke it down to give you guys some ideas. Is that the Fed, remember, is still adjusting interest rates, though it's not affecting price slowdown because that's a lagging indicator. Price slowdown is still going to follow way behind that. The difference is that interest rates are being affected, which reduces major capital being deployed into the markets, which has that, linear effect, but it's always a lagging linear effect on the economy. So this one is going to be one to watch. What are your thoughts on Alex cancel this week's? Yeah. I don't like calling anybody names, first of all. And I'm very conservative on this because I've seen businesses who've been on the brink of failure and going into bankruptcy who have pulled it out. I've seen those, personally. But I've also seen companies that were mismanaged that had everything. They were doing so great and they were just mismanaged into insolvency. I've seen that too. So I don't hope that on anyone, but the key here is that with a scenario like Celsius is because of what's happening in the market right now, there's a lot of players that are really kind of looking for liquidity opportunities. It really is, if you ever watched the movie Wall Street, it is that kind of activity within it. These players are literally shredding each other. These are megalodon moves that are happening for sure. The wealthiest, how can Tether go to zero? The only way it goes to zero is on liquidity, is if we get a bank run on Tether. The only way you get a bank run on Tether is if Tether gets so much FUD and they can't correlate it against, or they can't offset that commercial paper. That's the concerns that are really, and this has been brewing for a long time. It's not like it's new stuff. The timing will always occur around a deafening market impact like what we've had with Bitcoin and the traditional crypto market now under $1 trillion. So yeah, John Andrews, what about DAI? Again, getting back to all stables. I think all stables right now outside USDC is going to be interesting. I don't think USDC will take over in 30 days, but eventually it will happen. Let's go to the poll real quick. All right, so do you feel Tether can go to zero rapidly and wreck? Okay, most of you are still, but for it to be that close, that's interesting. USDT collapse is a restart, 90% of the crypto market for sure. It would be a huge hit. We could see, numbers that we've never seen before in Bitcoin. Some of these people are just praying for this. There's people out there that think that is the greatest thing that will ever happen because it just resets the entire cap table of a company if you think about it. What are your thoughts on Binance Coin or Binance Exchange? I mean, Binance is still the big boy, so it's not like they're going away. Yield farming only works on the way up. That's true. You can only issue a new coin, pay yields when more money flows in. That is something too that, Brett, I think a lot of people don't understand right now. They're trying to still search for yields because they've been in that yield farm, that DeFi phase. I'm worried that DeFi doesn't survive this winter, or only a handful of DeFi projects truly come out on the other side, because they still need liquidity to operate and they still need liquidity to be able to manage the users that are within it. So it's going to be one to watch for sure. Should I move my USDT and USDC? Not financial advice. We do market movers like this all the time. And the key here, guys, is, if you want to follow what I do, I talk about what I do all the time. I don't own Tether. That's just me. But I use it all the time. I use it as a gateway product. And it typically, I might hold something in Tether for a day or two, and then it's finding its way either into an asset or into USDC or a dollar. I was surprised how almost all alts held after Bitcoin dropped below 24. There's a few of the alts that will, let me know. Do you guys want an altcoin video? Because there's a few altcoin projects that are and have some potentials to look at. I'd love to drop the altcoins. First, hit the like, drop the altcoins that you'd like to see in the chat, and we'll take a look at those, try to get to some of those maybe within the next little bit. Why does Ledger force people to leave 20 XRP in Ledger when you have to withdraw your XRP coins? Does all your cold storage drives require to waste 20 XRP like that? I don't know if all of them do. I haven't tried XRP on Trezor. So that is a good question. That is a question, I think, for the help desk. FUD was rife on Tether last bear, engineered FUD, maybe. The difference on the last bear is we didn't have Circle sitting at the catbird seat trying to take over, and you didn't have the pressures on the market that we've got from the macro side, meaning inflation bearing down on us, recessions bearing down on us, situations with possibly unemployment, still, kind of stuck in a global conflict scenario in Ukraine. All those kind of things are trouble. Paul, there is no evidence or audit that suggests that we'll go to zero. No, nothing goes to zero until it's illiquid. So the point I'm getting at is that if there ever is a bank run, great banks can go to zero if there is a bank run, because no one is that liquid that they can't handle a market shift into something that is an asset. And it's much like some of these countries where they have these currencies that literally just disappear in the matter of 2 weeks to a month. So it's not, you cannot put these kind of things out of your mind in the sense they can't happen, because we're in crypto. Crypto is one of those scenarios. It's the most volatile category we have in investing, and it's a difficult one to navigate right now for sure. Dr. Ryan, you're worried, or am I worried about that? Worried about Voyager's exposure to Three Arrows Capital? I don't know how far. I know they had some Three Arrows Capital exposure. I just don't know to what extent. That's probably a good deep dive on that. You want some Elon news? I like it. KuCoin to swap out of USDT to USDC. That's my main perp joint. So get with it. I don't trust USDT. More and more. We'll continue to see more of this, guys, for sure. We're going to keep you guys updated as much as we can on not only the breaking news, but also a lot of our own research and deep dive. Sentiment is a big part of it that we drive into. Make sure and jump into the Diamond Circle. It's free. If you guys are watching, you're going to get an email today that's going to give you access. If you're a Diamond Circle member, you're going to get an email. You're going to have an opportunity to jump into our mastermind group. It's a group that's going to be limited on people, but it will have direct access to us. We'll have a live group, chats, dropping in a lot of community information, additional videos, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to do some giveaways within that. So be on the lookout for that. If you want to reach me, it's out on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.